And so this brings us to something I see all the time. Professionals are networking, they're attending those conferences, they're meeting people, they're connecting with them, but very little business is actually coming from those relationships. And the question is why? And I think it's because knowing someone isn't the same thing as being referable. I'm Sylvia Garibaldi, founder and CEO of a well-established marketing training and done-for-you services company, tailored specifically for the modern legal and financial professional worldwide. While it's taken some trial and error to figure out which methods get the best results for professionals who are looking to grow their practices, fast forward to today, my team and I have nailed down and perfected a process that has helped so many of our clients consistently achieve outstanding results and create a legacy for their practices. I created the Serve First, Sell Later marketing podcast to give you simple, actionable, non-salesy, and results-driven marketing to grow your legal or financial practice like so many of our clients have. If you're a lawyer, mediator, financial, or divorce professional who is looking to become highly visible and wants to create a practice that makes an impact, then you're in the right place. Let's dive in. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to episode 136 of the Serve First, Sell Later marketing podcast. I'm your host, Sylvia Garibaldi, and if you haven't already, please make sure to subscribe to the podcast by hitting the follow or subscribe button so that you don't miss future episodes packed with actionable strategies to grow your practice. So in episode 134, I kicked off a new 4-part series looking at the recommendation engines that influence whether someone ultimately chooses to contact you or maybe refer to you or recommend to you. And so in episode 134, we talked about your clients and we looked at something that I think professionals sometimes underestimate, and that is the experience that you create for a client doesn't end when the case ends, right? That experience influences what they say about you, whether they recommend you, and ultimately whether they become one of the people helping to grow your practice. So if you haven't listened to episode 134, then I encourage you to go back and listen, and we'll be sure to put a link in the show notes so that you can get directly to that episode. So today we're moving to the second recommendation engine. And this one has the potential to generate business for you again and again. And that is your professional network. So that could be lawyers, mediators, financial professionals, therapists, accountants, HR executives, CEOs. So they're people that you may already have relationships with, and they actually serve the same people that you serve. And so I want you to think about something. Somewhere today, a conversation is going to happen. So a client is going to ask their lawyer, do you know a really good mediator? Or someone who's going through a divorce might ask, do you know a really good family lawyer? And so I think it's in that moment that someone's going to recommend a name. And the question I have for you is, will it be yours? Because you can know hundreds of professionals, you can actually have thousands of LinkedIn connections, and still receive very few referrals, right? Because knowing people isn't the same thing as being referable. So for someone to refer you, they need to understand exactly what you do. They need to trust you. They need to know when to think of you. And perhaps I think most importantly, they need to remember you at the exact moment that an opportunity presents itself. So that's what we're going to talk about today. So let's get started. So I want to start with very briefly, why your professional network can be such a powerful source of new business. So think about the difference between someone finding you online and someone being referred to you. So if someone sees one of your LinkedIn posts or finds your website, they still have to decide whether they trust you. But then imagine that someone actually recommends you. Maybe it's another lawyer, a therapist, an accountant, a CEO. And they say, hey, you should call Sylvia. I know her, I trust her, and I know she's really good at what she does. And so you and I both know that that's a completely different starting point, right? You're no longer starting from zero because now you have this recommendation. But don't forget, they're already checking you out online. So your online presence has to be robust as well. And so, in professions like law, mediation, and divorce, where people are often making very personal and high stakes decisions, that trust can carry enormous weight. But there's also another reason why professional referral partners are so valuable. And that's because a client might refer you once or twice, but a strong referral partner could potentially refer you again and again. So I want you to think about your network a little differently. Instead of asking, who could send me clients? I want you to think about it differently. I want you to ask who already has relationships with the people I want to serve. And that's how you start identifying the right referral partners. And notice that I said the right referral partners because you don't need hundreds of them. I'd rather see you develop 20 strong professional relationships with people or professionals who understand what you do and trust you. So I think that's really important, is to be able to have a small group of professionals that you know you can rely on to send you referrals and vice versa. But those relationships have to be developed. And so this brings us to something I see all the time. Professionals are networking, they're attending those conferences, they're meeting people, they're connecting with them, but very little business is actually coming from those relationships. And the question is why? And I think it's because knowing someone isn't the same thing as being referable. And so let's really dive into what's going to make you referable. Because I hear this from professionals all the time. They'll say, Sylvia, I network constantly. I'm meeting people. I'm going to conferences. I'm active in my associations. And then I ask, well, how much business is actually coming from those relationships? And very often the answer is, well, not as much as I'd like. And I think here is where the problem is. Meeting people doesn't make you referable. Before someone is going to put their reputation on the line and recommend you to a client or a colleague, I really believe that there are 4 things that need to happen. First, they need to know you, not simply recognize your name. There needs to be some kind of relationship, right? That's ongoing. Second, they need to trust you. So if I'm going to be referring one of my clients to you, I'm putting a little bit of my own reputation on the line, and I need to feel confident that you're going to take good care of that person. Third, they really need to understand exactly what you do. And here is where a lot of referrals get lost. They know you're a mediator, and that's helpful. But if they knew that you're a mediator who specializes in high conflict parenting disputes, I think that's going to be much more useful because now they know when to think of you. Okay. And finally, they have to remember you. And this one's incredibly important as well. You can have a conversation with someone at a conference and they really like you and they believe you're really excellent at what you do. But 6 months later, when someone asks, do you know anyone that can help me with this? The question is, will your name actually come to mind? Because referrals don't happen when someone knows you. They happen when someone remembers you at the moment that that need appears. And that's why I don't believe the goal of networking should simply be to meet more people. The goal should be to develop relationships with the right people and then stay visible enough that they remember what you do. And in order for you to stay visible enough, you need to have a visibility plan where you are front and center with them every single week. So we're going to talk about how to do that, but I think that that's really, really important. And so here's another question I want you to think about. If I asked 10 people in your professional network, what kind of client should I refer to you? I want to share something with you that I see come up time and time again. Many professionals I speak to know exactly who they want to attract, but where things break down isn't clarity, it's actually implementation. So they're not sure how to translate that into messaging, how to stay visible, or how to turn that visibility into actual client inquiries. So if this sounds familiar, I created a step-by-step guide to help you work right through this. This free guide walks you through how to define your ideal clients, identify the right referral partners, understand where they're actually looking, including AI, and most importantly, how to turn all of that into consistent action. You can download your free guide at www.sgandassociates.ca/ free-guide. Link is also in the show notes. Would they know the answer, right? And if you're not sure, that's probably where you need to start because people cannot refer what they don't understand. And I think that makes logical sense. And they can't recommend someone that they don't remember. Okay, so let's talk about how to make them remember you. So, how do we do this? And I think you need to be associated with something. And this is where being too broad can actually hurt your ability to generate referrals. So, let's say I know 5 mediators and they're all excellent, they're experienced. But if all I know is that they're mediators, how do I decide which one to recommend? Now, imagine that I know one of those mediators specializes in high conflict parenting disputes. Another one is known for complex financial divorces. And maybe another one focuses in on workplace conflict involving senior executives. So suddenly, referring becomes much easier, right? That makes a lot of sense because when that particular problem comes up, I know exactly who to think of. And that's what you want to create in the minds of your referral partners. You want them to have an association between a particular problem and your name. So instead of asking, do people in my network know what I do? I think you should be thinking a little differently and ask, what situation would make someone immediately think of me? Okay. I think that's a better question to ask. And so you reinforce that association by consistently talking about the problems that you solve. You're going to write about them. You're going to speak about these problems. You're going to include these problems on your LinkedIn social media posts. You are going to host webinars and workshops around these problems. You're going to have conversations with referral partners around these problems. And you don't have to constantly tell people you're an expert. I really believe we need to demonstrate that we are an expert because the more often someone sees you connected to a particular issue, the stronger that association becomes. And I think eventually, when they're sitting across from someone who has the exact problem, something happens. They think, I know who you should talk to, right? And that's the moment that you're trying to create. And so your referral partners don't just need to know what you do, they need to know when to think of you. And so once you've created that association, I think the next challenge is making sure that the relationship doesn't disappear because even the best referral relationships need to be nurtured. And so I guess the question is, once we've identified the right referral partners and they know what you do and they understand when to think of you, I think this is the part that most professionals struggle with, and that is, how do you stay in touch with them so you can continue to reinforce the problems that you solve and that you could also stay top of mind? Because referral relationships don't usually disappear because something went wrong. They disappear because life gets busy. You have a great conversation with someone, you say, hey, let's stay in touch, right? That's always a popular one. And then 6 months go by and suddenly you're no longer top of mind. And that's why you need to have some kind of system for nurturing these relationships. And it doesn't mean taking 20 people out for lunch every month. Okay, that's exhausting. There are lots of simple ways to stay connected. And, first and foremost, if you have a social media cadence, meaning you post every single week, same day, same time, not haphazardly, okay, then people get to remember who you serve and what problems you solve. And I think that's really important to be able to do that. So having a social media cadence is a very powerful way for you to keep your message in front of your referral partners at scale, right? Rather than reaching out to them individually. You still will need to do that, but you want to capture them when they're on their LinkedIn or when they're scrolling on their Instagram. so they can remember you and your powerful messages. I hope that makes sense. I would say that one of my favorite ways to stay in touch with referral partners is a newsletter. A monthly newsletter really gives you a reason to show up in someone's inbox on a regular basis without having to personally reach out to them every single time, right? So, but here's the key: you don't make your newsletter a collection of announcements about you, okay? Because at the end of the day, nobody really cares. I'm being very frank with you here. We need to make it useful. You need to share an insight about something that you're seeing in your work. So answer a question that clients are asking you repeatedly, or talk about a trend affecting the people that you serve. Share maybe a short case example, and of course, always protecting confidentiality, but something that helps your referral partners better understand when someone might need your services. So, for example, if you're a workplace mediator, you might talk about the warning signs that workplace conflict is escalating and when outside intervention could help, right? So, you could share a case of a client that came to you or a company that came to you to say, hey, here are some of the things we've been experiencing. We need your help. And so then you dive into that in your newsletter to share that with your referral partners to say, hey, company ABC approached me and these were the signals that they were receiving from their senior management and workforce that had them reach out to me immediately because these were signals, screams for help, if you will. And so those are interesting ways to share with your referral partners what they should be looking for to refer to you. Okay, I hope that's making sense. If you're a divorce financial professional, you could explain maybe a financial issue that lawyers should be watching for in divorce, right? So you can get really granular. And so maybe that piece really helps the lawyers in your referral database who are subscribed to your newsletter. But it also gives an overview to your other referral partners that are subscribed to that newsletter as well about some of the things that could be valuable for them to understand. So now what you're doing is you're really staying visible. You're actually helping your referral partners recognize opportunities to refer you. And I think that's incredibly valuable. And as I mentioned, LinkedIn can serve the exact same purpose. If you're consistently sharing useful information about the problems that you solve, then people in your network are being reminded of your expertise without having to call and say, hey, remember me? Of course, as I said, you still need some of those personal touches. So you could also send an article to someone via email, personalized, and say, hey, I thought of you and thought of our recent conversation. Or you reach out to a referral partner and congratulate them when they receive an award or maybe start a new role. And always think about commenting thoughtfully on their social media posts. Maybe it's something that they've written. And so thinking of those opportunities are important. And I would say another valuable way to reach out to them is to introduce them to someone who could be valuable to them and to stay top of mind when you're actually introducing them to someone. That's another great way to do that. You can invite them for coffee, invite them for lunch, right? Getting back to the basics, or sending them a quick DM and saying, hey, it's been a while. I'd love to hear what you're working on, and arrange for a Zoom call or a meeting in person. So, as I said, thinking about making introductions, but then also taking the step to refer business to them. If you want to build strong referral relationships, you need to become a referrer yourself. And not because you're keeping score and not because you're expecting something back, but because you're demonstrating that this is a relationship that you value. And I think this is really where serve first, sell later concept comes into play. So instead of constantly asking, what can this person do for me? You need to ask, how can I be useful to this person? I would actually make this very practical. Maybe create a list, perhaps of 20 people who could become important referral partners, and then sketch out a plan of how you want to stay in touch with them. So maybe, you're committing to writing a monthly newsletter because then it reaches people at scale and you don't have to do those individual reach outs, right? That could be a great way to start. And as I said, a monthly newsletter something that you do every single month, you keep to that cadence, can really drive deeper relationships and emails saying, "Hey, thanks, John, for your newsletter. I really enjoyed reading that. Let's catch up. Let's set up a call." Right? So that newsletter now just allowed for a coffee call or a Zoom call to be set up with this person who just read your newsletter. That's the power of it. So there are multiple touch points, and those touch points do add up. And I think that's really what staying top of mind is really about, because you don't want to, suddenly appear when you need something. You want to have been there all along, because when someone eventually sits across from your referral partner and says, "Hey, do you know someone who can help me with this?" You don't want them struggling to remember your name, right? You want your name to be the first one that comes to mind. And I think that's really, really important. Okay, now I want to talk about a really simple step. It's a powerful one, but boy, oh boy, is it overlooked. So, when someone in your network sends you a referral, that's great, but your work with that referral partner is not finished. In fact, in some ways, it's just beginning, because when someone refers a client to you, they're putting their own reputation on the line. And I talked about this already, right? So when they say you should call this person, they're really great at what they do, and I have all the confidence in the world that they can help you. That is like one of the greatest compliments that you can receive. And so if that person has a terrible experience, it doesn't just reflect badly on the professional that I referred them to, it reflects badly on me too, as the person who just referred them, right? So when someone sends you a referral, you actually have two relationships to think about: the relationship with the potential client and the relationship with the person who referred you. So, first, you want to acknowledge that referral. And it can be as simple as, "Thank you, John, so much for thinking of me. I really appreciate the introduction." Please don't let the referral disappear into your intake process without saying anything. Okay. Secondly, make sure that that person receives the same level of care that you want one of your own clients to receive if you referred them somewhere. Respond promptly, make the steps clear, be professional. Those are all simple things that you need to do on an ongoing basis. And I think here's one more thing that is often overlooked, right? When someone regularly sends business your way, don't take the relationship for granted, as I said. You need to really thank them. You need to stay connected with them. But then you also have to look for opportunities to help them. And when appropriate, refer business back. I think that's something that's super important, because if they're constantly referring to you and you are not helping them, I promise you that well is going to dry up, because people are going to say, I have been sending all of these great people their way, but I'm not sure I'm seeing anything come back my way. And the reality is, you should be helping that other person. Maybe it's not a direct referral, because maybe you don't have direct referrals that you can send their way, but maybe it's other value added information. Maybe it's an introduction to someone and not a referral, right? But you need to be able to acknowledge that relationship, thank them, and try to do something to help them. So, for example, if you don't have referrals that you can send their way, just say, "Unfortunately, I don't have too many people coming my way, but you will be front and center and when somebody needs your help." But then take it a step further, right? Take them out for lunch, thank them somehow so that they feel appreciated, particularly if you can't send business back to them. Okay, so that's what I mean. It may not be that you're sending referrals, one referral for one referral. You may not be able to do that, but be particular about thanking them in some shape or form, right? And I think that's super important, because you want that referral partner to feel appreciated. When they stop feeling appreciated, they will no longer refer to you. And that's what I mean by the well drying up. Okay. All right. So I want to now talk about how you can use this a little bit more strategically. So, what I want you to do is maybe start by looking at 10 people who could realistically become strong referral partners for you, and ask yourself, who already works with the types of clients I want to serve? Who regularly encounters the problems that I help solve? And who do I genuinely want to build a stronger professional relationship with? And so once you have those 10 names, I want you to ask yourself 3 questions about each person. And you're going to ask yourself, do they know exactly what I do? Do they know what type of client or situation they should refer to me? And have I had meaningful contact with them recently? And you're probably going to be seeing some gaps very quickly. That's going to be my guess. And then choose 3 people from that list, only 3, and reconnect with them this week, period. But here's the important part. Don't contact them and ask them for referrals. Just find a genuine reason to reconnect. We talked about some of the genuine reasons, reconnecting for coffee, sending them an article that could be useful, maybe an introduction, and reach out to them and build that relationship. Super, super important. So, as we wrap up this episode, I want you to remember something. Your professional network can be one of the most powerful recommendation engines you have. But simply knowing a lot of people isn't enough, as I mentioned. The goal is not to collect more LinkedIn connections or attend more networking events and handing out those business cards. The goal is to just build relationships with the right people. But they do need to understand what you do, and they also need to know when to think about you, right? So take a look at your professional network and ask yourself those questions. And so please remember, this is only part 2 of our 4-part series on the recommendation engines that can help you grow your practice. And so next week, I'm going to share recommendation engine number 3. And it's one that has changed tremendously in just the last few years. So please make sure to subscribe to the podcast so that you don't miss it. Thank you so much for joining me today. And until next time, keep serving first and selling later. See you in the next episode.